This is the concept of health and disease. आज इसे हम लोग कंप्लीट कर लेंगे, ठीक है? उसके बाद ही ये लाइव सेशन हटाया जाएगा. फर्स्ट आई कंप्लीट दिस चैप्टर. वी आर इन पेज नंबर 37. हम लोग को 60 तक पढ़ना है, सो 20 पेज पढ़ना है. सो द कंसेप्ट ऑफ प्राइमरी हेल्थ केयर इन्वॉल्व्स अ concreted effort to provide the rural population of developing countries with at least the bare minimum of health services. The list can be modified to fit the local circumstances. For example, some countries have um, specifically included mental health, physical handicap, and health and social care for elderly. The primary healthcare approach integrates at the community level all the factors required for improving the health status of population. Hi Shashank. A signatory to the Alma Ata Declaration, the government of India has pledged itself to provide primary health care. So तुम मैरो देख लेना, right? And I'll read. तो तुम दूसरे किसी डिवाइस पे मैरो देख लेना, right? सो अ सिग्नेटरी टू अल्मा आटा डिक्लेरेशन जो है, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया जो है प्लेज किया है कि हम लोग को प्रोवाइड करेगा प्राइमरी हेल्थ केयर. सो ऑब्स्टिकल टू इम्प्लीमेंटेशन ऑफ प्राइमरी हेल्थ केयर इन इंडिया इंक्लूड्स शॉर्टेज ऑफ हेल्थ मैन पावर नहीं है, entrenchment of curative culture within the existing health system. क्यूरेटिव कल्चर है एंड हाई कंसंट्रेशन ऑफ हेल्थ सर्विसेज एंड हेल्थ प्रोफेशनल इन अर्बन एरिया. अर्बन एरिया में बहुत ज़्यादा हेल्थ प्रैक्टिसेस देखने को मिलता है, राइट? जस्ट गिव मी 1 सेकेंड. हे शंक, मैंने जस्ट अपना टैब खोला था तो मुझसे ना मतलब जस्ट मैरो ही खुल गया, तो आई डोंट नो इफ दैट वुड मेक एनी प्रॉब्लम और एनीथिंग. मैंने बंद कर दिया है, मैंने मैरो बंद कर दिया है, तुम अभी देख लेना. ओके, आगे हम लोग पढ़ते हैं. सो हेल्थ प्रॉब्लम क्या हमारे यहाँ है? So, the first international conference on health promotion was held in Ottawa in November 1986, primarily in response to growing expectation for a new public health movement around the world. It was built on progress made through declaration on primary health care at Alma Ata and the debate at World Health Assembly on intersectorial action for health. So the conference resulted in proclamation of the Ottawa Charter for Health Promotion. Okay, which has been a source of guidance and inspiration for health promotion since that time. So, health is a basic human right and is essential for social and economic development. Increasingly, health promotion is being recognized as an essential element of health development. Health promotion through investment and action has a marked impact on the determinant of health so as to create the greatest health gain for people to contribute significantly to reduction in inequalities of health and to further human rights. The ultimate goal is to increase the health expectancy. Jakarta. Jakarta Declaration on Health Promotion. So, the Jakarta Declaration on Health Promotion, the fourth conference held in July 1997, offered a vision and focus for health promotion into the 21st century. The determinants of health, new challenges in 21st century, the fundamental condition and resources for health are peace, shelter, education, social security, social relation, food, income, the employment of women, a stable ecosystem, sustainable resource use, social justice, respect for human rights, and equity. Above all, poverty is the greatest threat to human. ये वर्ड ना अपने आप में बहुत पावरफुल है. What does this word say? This line says, this says that poverty is the greatest threat to health. जब तक poverty है, गरीबी है, तब तक healthy आदमी नहीं रह सकता है. We need money ताकि सोशो इकोनॉमिक इन्वामेंट चेंज हो सके. इन्वामेंट चेंज होगा, लोगों का हेल्थ अपने आप बेटर हो जाएगा. Now, demographic trends such as urbanization, an increase in the number of older people, high prevalence rate of chronic disease pose a new problem in all countries. Other social, behavioral, and biological changes, such as increased sedentary behavior, resistance to antibiotics, and other commonly available drugs, increased drug abuse, civil and domestic violence threaten the health and well being of hundreds of millions of people. Now, and re emerging infectious disease and the greater recognition of mental health problem requires an urgent response. It is vital that approach to health promotion evolve to meet changes in the determinants of health to address emerging threats to the health. New forum of actions are needed. The challenges for the coming years will be to unlock the potential for health promotion inherent in many sectors of society, among local communities and within families. One second, guys. Just one second. Is all clear? So, the Ottawa Carter Incorporation, 5 key action areas in health promotion. 5 key action areas क्या क्या था? पहले build healthy public policy, then create supportive environment for health, then strengthen community action for health, then develop potential skills and reorient health services. So a logo was created for Ottawa Conference. Since then, WHO kept this symbol as the health promotion logo as it stands for the approaches to health promotion as outlined in Ottawa chapter. The logo represents a circle with 3 wings. ये पूछ सकते हो ओटावा वाला जो लोगो है उसका क्या है, तो एक सर्कल है विथ 3 विंग्स, ऐसे 3 विंग्स है. आई डोंट नो वो कैसा है, मैं तो ऐसे ही इमेजिन कर रही हूँ. इन it incorporates 5 key action areas in health promotion and 3 basic health promotion strategies. 5 basic areas क्या है? पॉलिसी अच्छा बनाना है, सपोर्टिव इन्वायरमेंट हेल्थ के लिए बनाना है, कम्युनिटी को स्ट्रेंथन करना है, develop personal skills and reorient health services. So health promotion strategies and programs should be adapted to the local need and possibilities of individual countries and regions to take into account different social, cultural and economic systems. So millennium development goals क्या होता है? MDGs कहते हैं. In the Millennium Declaration of September 2000, member state of the UN made a most passionate commitment to address the crippling poverty and multiplying misery that grips many areas of the world. Government has set a date of 2015 by which they would meet Millennium Development Goal, eradicate extreme poverty and hunger, and achieve universal primary education, promote gender equality, and empower women, reduce child mortality, empower maternal health, and combat HIV and AIDS, malaria, and other diseases to ensure environmental sustainability and develop a goal partnership for development. Now, sustainable development goal क्या होता है? So, in the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda is of unprecedented scope and ambition, applicable to all countries and goes well beyond the MDGs While poverty eradication, health education, and food security and nutrition remains the priority, the Sustainable Development Goal जो होता है comprises of a broad range of economic, social, and environmental objectives and offers the prospect of more peace and inclusive society. Paragraph 26 of 2030 Agenda for a Sustainable Development addresses health as follows: to promote physical and mental health and well-being, and to extend life expectancy for all, we must achieve universal health coverage and access to quality health care. No one must be left behind. We commit to accelerating the progress made to date in reducing newborn, child, and maternal mortality by ensuring all such preventable deaths before 2030. We are committed to ensuring universal access to sexual and reproductive healthcare services, including for family planning, information, and education. We will equally accelerate the pace of progress made in fighting malaria, HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis, hepatitis, Ebola, and other communicable diseases and epidemic, including addressing growing antimicrobial resistance and the problem of unattended disease affecting developed countries. We are committed to the prevention and treatment of non-communicable disease, including behavioral development and neurological disorders, which constitute a major challenge in sustainable development. So आगे देखते हैं. Out of the 17 goals, third goal is devoted specifically to the health. ठीक है. सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल में 17 गोल था, उसमें जो थर्ड गोल था वो हेल्थ के लिए ही डिवोटेड था एंड इज फ्रेम्ड इन डेलिबरेटली ब्रॉड टर्म्स दैट आर रेलिवेंट to all countries and all population, ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all the ages. The health goal is associated with 13 targets, including 4 means of implementation targets labeled as 3A to 3D. Overall, the SDGs have 169 targets. Now health policies देख लेते हैं. So policies are generally statement based on human aspirations, set of values, commitment, and assessment of current situation and an image of a desired future situation. A national health policy is an expression of goal for improving the health situation and priorities among these goals and the main direction for attaining them. So, the health policies is often defined at the national level. Each country will have to develop a health policy of its own aimed at defining goals for improving the people's health and in the light of its own problem. Particular circumstances, social and economic structures, and political and administrative mechanisms among the crucial factors affecting realization of these goals are a political commitment, financial implication, administrative reform, community participation, and basic legislation. So, a landmark in the development of health policy was worldwide adopted of the goal HFA by 2000 AD. A further landmark was Alma Ata declarations calling on all governments to develop and implement primary healthcare strategies to attain the target HFA by 2000 AD, and more recently Millennium Development Goals, Sustainable Development Goals. सो ये हो गया अल्मा आटा HFA जो है मिलेनियम डेवलपमेंट गोल्स, सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स, ये सब पॉलिसीज है. हेल्थ सर्विस रिसर्च क्या कहता है? तो हेल्थ रिसर्च हैव सेवरल ramification. It may include biomedical research to elucidate outstanding health problems and develop new and better ways for dealing with them. So, intersectoral research for which relationship would have to be established with the institution concerned with the other sectors, and health services research or health practice research, now called health system research. So, concept of health service research was developed during 1981 and 82. It has been defined as the systematic study of means by which biomedical and other relevant knowledge is brought to bear on the health of individual and communities under a given set of condition. सो एच एस आर जो है यानी हेल्थ सर्विस रिसर्च जो है इज़ in wide scope. It deals with all the aspect of management of health services. We said prioritization of health problem, planning management, logistic and delivery of healthcare services. It deals with such topics जैसे कि manpower, organization and utilization of facility, the quality of healthcare, cost benefit and cost effectiveness. Thousands of people suffer morbidity, mortality, and disability not because of deficiencies in biomedical knowledge but as a result of failure to apply this knowledge effectively. Health services research aim to correct this failure. The concept of health service research is holistic and multidisciplinary. The prime purpose of health service research is to improve the health of the people through improvement not only by conventional health services but also of other services that have a bearing on health. Health service research जो होता है is essential for continuous evolution and refinement of health services. Hello शशांक. तो इन कंसेप्ट ऑफ डिजीज़ क्या है हम लोग ये देख लेते हैं. सो देयर हैव बीन मेनी अटेम्प्ट्स टू डिफाइन डिजीज़. वेबस्टर डिफाइन डिजीज़ एज अ कंडीशन इन विच बॉडी जो है body health is impaired and departure from the state of health and alteration of the human body interrupting the performance of vital functions. So the Oxford's English dictionary defines disease as a condition of the body of some part or organ of the body in which its functions are disrupted or deranged. From an ecological point of view, disease is defined as a maladjustment of the human organism to the environment. From the sociological point of view, disease is considered a social phenomenon occurring in the societies and are defined and fought in terms of particular cultural forces prevent in the society prevalent in the society. The simplest definition is, of course, that disease is just the opposite of health. That is any deviation from the normal functioning of the state of complete physical or mental well-being, since health and disease are mutually exclusive. These definitions are considered inadequate because they do not give a criteria by which to define when a disease state begins, nor do they lend themselves to measurement of the disease. Now, the WHO has defined health but not disease. This is because disease has many shades, spectrum of disease, ranging from inapparent subclinical cases to severe manifest illness. Some disease commence acutely, that is food poisoning, and some insidious, as a mental illness, rheumatoid arthritis. In some disease, a carrier state occurs in which the individual remains outwardly healthy and is able to infect others, जैसे कि typhoid fever, and in some instances the same organism may cause more than one clinical manifestation, जैसे streptococcus. In some cases the same disease may be caused by more than one organism, जैसे diarrhea. Some disease have a short course and some a prolonged course. It is easy to determine the illness when the signs and symptoms are manifested, but in many diseases the borderline between normal and abnormal is indistinct, as in the case of diabetes, hypertension, mental illness. The end point of final outcome of the disease is variable. रिकवरी, डिसेबिलिटी या डेथ हो सकता है होस्ट का. So, distinction is also made between the words disease, illness, sickness, um, which are not wholly synonymous. The term disease literally means without a's, uneasiness. Dis- Disease, the opposite of is when something is wrong in the bodily function. Illness का क्या मतलब होता है? Refers not only to the presence of specific disease but also to the individual's perception and behavior in response to the disease. Illness is कि वो कैसा रिस्पॉन्स कर रहा है उस डिसीज़ के प्रति, एज वेल एज द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ दैट डिजीज़ ऑन द साइको सोशल इन्वायरमेंट, उसको हम लोग इलनेस कहते हैं. और सिकनेस क्या हो जाएगा? रेफर्स टू द स्टेट ऑफ सोशल डिसफंक्शन. यानी कि सिकनेस तब बोलेंगे जैसे सिकनेस लीव बोलते हैं. इसका मतलब है कि वो इतना बीमार है दैट ही इज़ नॉट एबल टू फंक्शन, मतलब ही इज़ नॉट एबल टू डू हिज जॉब, इज़ नॉट एबल टू कम टू द कॉलेज और स्कूल. सो उसको हम लोग सिकनेस कहेंगे जब वर्क प्रॉब्लम भी आने लग जाए. तो सूजर हैज सजेस्टेड द फॉलोइंग यूजेस. डिसीज इज अ साइकोलॉजिकल फिजियोलॉजिकल डिसफंक्शन. इलनेस इज अ सब्जेक्टिव स्टेट ऑफ अ पर्सन who feels aware of not being well, and sickness is a state of social dysfunction, that is a role that the individual assumes when ill. Sickness role. The clinician sees people who are ill rather than the disease, which he must diagnose and treat. However, it is possible to be victim of the disease without feeling ill, and to be ill without signs of physical impairment. In short, an adequate definition of disease is yet to be found, a definition that is satisfactorily or acceptable to the epidemiologist, clinician, sociologist, and statistician. द कंसेप्ट ऑफ कॉजेशन क्या होता है? ये कॉजेशन वाला थ्योरी आता है ना, कंसेप्ट ऑफ कॉजेशन. अच्छा, ये क्या होता है देख लेते हैं. अप टू द टाइम ऑफ लुइस पास्चर के टाइम तक वेरियस कंसेप्ट ऑफ डिजीज कॉजेशन वेर इन वेग. एग्जाम्पल, द सुपर नेचुरल थ्योरी ऑफ डिजीज, द थ्योरी ऑफ humor, the concept of contagion, mismatch theory of disease, the theory of spontaneous generation, etc. Discoveries in microbiology marked a turning point in our etiological concept. So, germ theory of disease. Mention has already been made about the germ theory of disease in chapter 1. The concept gained momentum during the 19th and the early 20th part of 20th century. The emphasis has shifted from empirical causes जैसे कि bad air to microbes as the sole cause of the disease. The concept to cause embodied in germ theory of disease is generally referred to as one-to-one relationship between the causal agent and the disease. The disease model accordingly is disease agent, man, disease. So the germ theory of disease, though it was revolutionary concept, led many epidemiologists to take one-sided view of the disease causation. That is, they could not think beyond the germ theory of disease. It is now recognized that a disease is rarely caused by a single agent alone, but rather depends upon a number of factors which contribute to the occurrence. Therefore, modern medicine has moved away from the strict adherence to the germ theory of disease. देन एपिडेमोलॉजिकल ट्रायड क्या होता है ये देख लेते हैं. सो द जर्म थ्योरी ऑफ डिजीज हैज़ मेनी लिमिटेशन. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इट इज़ वेल नोन दैट नॉट एवरी वन एक्सपोज टू ट्यूबरकुलोसिस डेवलप्स ट्यूबरकुलोसिस. द सेम एक्सपोजर, however, in an undernourished or otherwise susceptible person may result in a clinical disease. Sometimes, not everyone exposed to beta hemolytic streptococci develops acute rheumatic fever. There are other factors relating to the host and environment which are equally important to determine whether or not disease will occur in the exposed host. This demand a broader concept of disease causation that synthesizes the basic function of agent, host, and environment. So the above model, agent, host, and environment, has been in use for many years. It helped epidemiologists to focus on different classes of factors, especially with regard to infectious disease. So the triage of epidemiology. So the traditional triage of epidemiology is shown in figure 5. The triage is based on the communicable disease model and is useful in showing the interaction and independence of agent, host, environment, and time as used in the investigation of disease and epidemics. So the agent is the cause of the disease. एजेंट में क्या आ जाएगा कॉज ऑफ द डिसीज़ क्या है होस्ट इज़ एन ऑर्गेनिज्म यूजुअली ह्यूमन और एनिमल दैट हार्बर्स द डिजीज़ एंड द इन्वायरमेंट इज those surroundings and conditions external to the human or animal that causes and allows disease transmission. And time accounts for incubation period, life expectancy of the host or pathogen, and duration of the course of illness or condition. So, agent of infectious disease include bacteria, virus, parasite, fungi, molds. With regard to the non-infectious disease, disability, injury, or death, agents can include chemical from dietary foods, tobacco smokes, solvent radiations, or heat, nutritional deficiencies, or other substance such as poison. One or several agents may contribute to the illness. Uh, host offers uh, host offers subsistence and lodging for pathogen. सो ये तीन चीज़ के बारे में हमें बताया गया है कि इन्वॉर्मेंट एजेंट और होस्ट किसी भी डिसीज़ को हम लोग कम्युनिकेबल डिसीज़ को बेसिकली तीन पार्ट्स में हम लोग डिवाइड कर सकते हैं. नाउ एजेंट होस्ट एंड इन्वॉर्मेंट में डिवाइड करेंगे. एजेंट में क्या हो जाएगा जो भी पैथोजन जो कि डिसीज़ को कम्युनिकेट कर रहा है डिसीज़ को जो फैला रहा है दैट विल कम अंडर एजेंट. होस्ट में जो ह्यूमन बीइंग या एनिमल जो कि वो डिसीज़ जो हार्बर कर रहे हैं. देन इन्वायरमेंट में आ जाएंगे कौन से इन्वायरमेंट जो है वो ज़्यादा ये करते हैं डिसीज़ के लिए फेवरेबल है. इन्फेक्शियस डिजीज़ का एजेंट हो सकता है बैक्टीरिया, वायरस, पैरासाइट, फंजाई, मोल्ड. नॉन इन्फेक्शियस में डिसेबिलिटी, इंजरी, डेथ एजेंट ये सब आ सकता है. केमिकल्स फ्रॉम डाइटरी फूड्स, टोबैको स्मोक, सॉल्वेंट्स, रेडिएशन, हीट, न्यूट्रिशनल डेफिशिएंसीज, अदर सब्सटेंस जैसे कि पॉइजन आ सकता है. उसके बाद अ होस्ट. होस्ट के बारे में क्या है. होस्ट ऑफर सब्सिस्टेंस एंड लॉजिंग फॉर पैथोजन and may or may not develop the disease. The level of immunity, genetic makeup, and level of exposure, state of health, and overall fitness of the host can determine the effect of a disease organism will have on it. So, makeup of host and the ability of the pathogen to accept the new environment can also be determining factor because some pathogens thrive only under limited ideal condition. For example, many infectious disease agent can exist only in a limited temperature range. So इन्वामेंटल अब होस्ट के बारे में देख लिया. इन्वामेंट के बारे में देखते हैं. सो इन्वामेंटल फैक्टर कैन इंक्लूड द बायोलॉजिकल एस्पेक्ट एज वेल एज द सोशल, कल्चरल and physical aspect of the environment. The surrounding in which a pathogen lives and the effect of the surrounding have on it are the part of the environment. Environment can be within a host or external to it in the community. Finally, the time includes severity of the illness in relation to how long a person is infected or until the um, A condition causes death or passes the threshold of danger towards recovery. Delay in the time from infection to when symptoms develop, duration of illness, and threshold of an epidemic in a population are time elements with which the epidemiologists are concerned. So, the primary mission of epidemiology is to provide information that results in breaking one of the legs of the triangle, thereby disrupting the connection among environment, host and agent and stopping the आउटब्रेक. इसमें से किसी एक का पैर तोड़ना है और ये हम लोग इन्फेक्शन को फैलने से रोक सकते हैं. ठीक. मल्टीफैक्टोरियल कॉजेशन देख लेते. द कंसेप्ट दैट डिसीज इज ड्यू टू multiple factor is not a new one. Pettenkofer of Munich was an early proponent of this concept, but the germ theory of disease or single cause idea in the late 19th century overshadowed the multiple cause theory. So, as a result of advances in public health, chemotherapy, antibiotics, vector control, communicable disease began to decline, only to be replaced by a new type of disease, the so called modern disease of civilization, that is, lung cancer, coronary heart disease, chronic bronchitis, mental illness, etc. These diseases could not be explained on the basis of germ theory of disease, nor could they be prevented by the traditional method of isolation, immunization or improvement in sanitation. सो ये सब से तो हम लोग उसको संभालने से रहे ये सब लोग को. सो द रियलाइजेशन बिगैन टू डॉन दैट द सिंगल कॉज आइडिया वॉज एन ओवर सिंप्लीफाइड एंड दैट देयर आर अदर फैक्टर्स इन द etiology of disease, जैसे कि social, economic, cultural, genetic, psychological, which are equally important. As already mentioned, TB is not merely due to tubercle bacilli. Factors such as poverty, overcrowding, malnourishment contributes to its occurrence. So the doctrine of one-to-one relationship between the cause and disease have been shown to be untenable even for microbial disease, example tuberculosis, leprosy. It is now known that diseases such as coronary heart disease and cancer are due to multiple factors. For example, excess fat intake, smoking, lack of physical exercise, obesity, and all are involved in pathogenesis of coronary heart disease. Most of these factors are linked to lifestyle and human behavior. Epidemiology have contributed significantly to our present day understanding of multifactorial causation of disease. Medical men are looking beyond the germ theory of disease into the total life situation of a patient and the community in search of multiple factors of disease. Figure 6 presents an adapted and advanced model of triage of epidemiology. This new model includes all facets of the communicable disease model and make it relevant and useful with regard to today's disease. Now, conditions, disorders, defects, injuries, and death. It also reflects the causes of current illness and condition, behavioral, lifestyle factors, environmental causes, ecological element, physical factors, and chronic disease must also be taken into account. The term agent is replaced by causative factors, which implies the need to identify multiple causes or a etiological factor, disease, disability, injury, and death. So, causative factor group or population and their characteristic, environment, behavior, culture, physiological factors, and ecological element. Advanced model of the triage of epidemiology. Now, the purpose of knowing the multiple factors of disease is to quantify and arrange them in priority sequence for modification and amelioration to prevent or control disease. The multifactorial concept offers multiple approach for the prevention and control of disease. Now, web of causation. Web of causation क्या कहता है? This model of disease causation was suggested by McMahon and Pugh in their book Epidemiological Principles and Methods. This model is ideally suited in the study of chronic disease and where the disease agent is often not known, but is the outcome of interaction of multiple factors. The web of causation considers all the predisposing factors of any type and their context interrelation with each other. Figure 7 illustrates the complexity of causal web and of myocardial infarction, which is by no means complete. The basic tenet of epidemiology is to study the cluster of causes and combination of effect and how they relate to each other. It can be visualized that the causal web provide a model which shows a variety of possible interventions that could be taken which migrate reduces the occurrence of MI. So, the web of causation does not imply that the disease cannot be controlled unless all the multiple causes or chain of causation or at least a number of them are appropriately controlled or removed. This is not the case. Sometimes removal or elimination of just only one link or a chain may be sufficient to control the disease, provided that link is sufficiently important in the pathogenetic process. In a multifactorial event, therefore, individual factors are by no means all of equal weight. Relative importance to these factors may be expressed in terms of relative risk. ना हम लोग यहाँ पे देख सकते हैं चेंज इन लाइफस्टाइल स्ट्रेस चेंज इन लाइफस्टाइल एबंडेंस ऑफ फूड बहुत ज़्यादा खाने लगा फिजिकल एक्सरसाइज कम करने लगा स्मोकिंग करने लगा खाने की वजह से ओबेसिटी हो गया हाइपरलिपिडेमिया हो गया कोरोनरी एथेरोस्क्लेरोसिस कोरोनरी ऑक्लूशन एमआई इस्केमिया और एमआई हो गया ना स्मोकिंग कर रहा है उसकी वजह से इंक्रीज्ड कैटेकोलियामाइंस थ्रोम्बोटिक टेंडेंसी देन एमआई हो गया देन ओबेसिटी की वजह से हाइपरटेंशन हो सकता है जिसकी वजह से चेंजेस इन द वॉल ऑफ द आर्टरी हो जाएगा कोरोनरी आर्टरी एमआई हो सकता है एजिंग एंड अदर फैक्टर की वजह से भी हो सकता है स्ट्रेस की वजह से इमोशनल डिस्टर्बेंस की वजह से हाइपरटेंशन हो सकता है कोरोनरी आर्टरी एमआई हो सकता है दिस अब आप एक भी हटा दो मान लो खाना सुधार दोगे ओबेसिटी सुधरा हाइपरटेंशन सुधरेगा फिर मान लो ओबेसिटी अगर सुधर गया तो थोड़ा स्ट्रेस भी सुधर जाएगा स्मोकिंग भी आप सुधार दो तो उससे बहुत फ़ायदा करेगा है ना ओके आगे बढ़ते हैं हाय शांग शांग तुम लाइक क्यों नहीं कर रहे हो मेरे चैनल को इस वीडियो को लाइक कर दिया करोगा शांग सो नेचुरल हिस्ट्री ऑफ डिजीज़ देख लेते हैं So, disease results from a complex interaction between man and agent, yeah, cause of disease, and the environment. The term natural history of disease is a key concept in the epidemiology. It signifies the way in which a disease evolves over time from the earliest stage to the pre-pathogenic phase to its termination as recovery, disability, or death in the absence of treatment or prevention. Each disease has its own unique natural history, which is not necessarily the same in all individuals. So much so, any general formulation of the natural history of the disease is necessarily arbitrary. So, the natural history of a disease is best established by cohort study. Uh, as these studies are costly and laborious, our understanding in the natural history of the disease is largely based on other epidemiological studies, जैसे कि क्रॉस सेक्शनल रेट्रोस्पेक्टिव स्टडी undertaken in different population setting, both natural and international, national and international. What the physician sees in the hospital is just an episode in the natural history of disease. The epidemiologists, by studying the natural history of the disease in the community setting, is in a unique position to fill the gaps in our knowledge and about the natural history of the disease. Yes. So, hey Shang, I was just thinking that that we should, we should purchase something uh, and keep that in our room so that we can, whenever we would want to eat something, we could eat that. जैसे कि भूजा नॉट लाइक चना खरीद सकते हैं हम लोग, यहीं पे मिलता है सामने में. ऑल्सो फ्रूट्स, वी कैन ऑल्सो परचेस फ्रूट्स. दैट्स वेरी हेल्दी, चना and fruits. These are the things because I just crave every time for eating something like biscuit or anything. That. Okay. Let's move ahead. What the physician sees, ये बहुत एक एपिसोड होता है नेचुरल हिस्ट्री ऑफ डिजीज़ में. एपिडेमोलॉजी जो होता है नेचुरल हिस्ट्री ऑफ डिजीज़ को पढ़ करके कम्युनिटी सेटिंग में एक यूनिक पोजीशन फिल कर देता है हमारा गैप नॉलेज अबाउट द नेचुरल हिस्ट्री ऑफ द डिजीज़. तो एक स्कीमेटिक डायग्राम नेचुरल हिस्ट्री ऑफ डिजीज़ का शो किया हुआ इधर. It is a necessary framework to understand the pathogenetic chain of event of a particular disease, and for the application of preventive measures, it is customary to describe the natural history of disease as consisting of two phases: pathogenesis, that is the process and environment, and pre-pathogenesis and pathogenesis, the process in man. Pre-pathogenesis में environment describe करना है, pathogenesis में man describe करना है. Let us consider the event that take place in the natural history of disease using infectious disease as a principal model. So आप इधर देख सकते हो, ये दिस इज पीरियड ऑफ प्री पैथोजेनेसिस. प्री पैथोजेनेसिस में हम लोग क्या डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं? इन्वॉर्मेंट. इसमें हम लोग मैन को डिस्क्राइब कर रहे हैं. तो डिजीज प्रोसेस बिफोर मैन इज इन्वॉल्व, एजेंट, होस्ट and environmental factor known and unknown bring agent and host together or produce a disease provoking stimulus. यहाँ पे देखो, यहाँ पे हम लोग जब प्री पैथोजेनेसिस वाला है जहाँ पे इन्वॉर्मेंट गड़बड़ हो रहा है तो हम लोग प्राइमरी प्रिवेंशन कर सकते हैं, हेल्थ प्रमोशन कर सकते हैं, स्पेसिफिक प्रोटेक्शन दे सकते हैं ना. पीरियड ऑफ पैथोजेनेसिस ऑफ मैन को जाएगा क्या? द कोर्स ऑफ द डिजीज इन मैन. ठीक है, कैसे कैसे जा रहा है, यहाँ से जा रहा है. ठीक है, यहाँ से इन्वॉर्मेंट ख़राब हुआ तो इन द ह्यूमन होस्ट वो डिजीज़ लगा. क्या होगा? स्टिमुलस और एजेंट बिकम स्टैब्लिश एंड इंक्रीजिंग बाय मल्टीप्लिकेशन. वो ह्यूमन को लगा, फिर टिश्यू एंड फिजियोलॉजिकल चेंजेस उसके बाद होंगे. पहले ह्यूमन को वो बैक्टीरिया आया, बैक्टीरिया मल्टीप्लाई करेगा, टिश्यू और फिजियोलॉजिकल चेंज प्रोड्यूस करेगा, साइंस एंड सिम्टम्स प्रोड्यूस करेगा. उसके बाद इलनेस होगा, डिसेबिलिटी होगा, डिफेक्ट होगा, क्रॉनिक स्टेट होगा, डेथ हो जाएगा. या फिर अगर इलनेस में यहीं पे ये हो जाए, ट्रीट करें तो रिकवरी हो जाएगा. इम्यूनिटी एंड रेजिस्टेंस अगर होगा पेशेंट के पास तो रिकवरी हो जाएगा. So, interaction of host and stimulus and host reaction. Early pathogenesis, discernible early lesion, advanced disease, convalescence. So basically this is the secondary prevention जिसमें early diagnosis और treatment आता है. Primary में क्या आता है? Health promotion और specific protection. एंड टर्शरी में क्या आएगा? डिसेबिलिटी लिमिटेशन, रिहैबिलिटेशन. ये याद कर लोगे ना, ये जो है मोस्ट ऑफ द प्री पैथोजेनेसिस में क्या बोल रहा है? इट रेफर्स टू द पीरियड ऑफ preliminary to the onset of the disease in man. The disease agent has not yet entered man, but the factors which favors its interaction with human host are already existing in the environment. This stimulation is frequently referred to as man in the midst of the disease or man exposed to the risk of disease. Potentially, we are all in pathogenesis phase of many disease, both communicable and non-communicable. आप देख सकते हो दिस इज द एजेंट, होस्ट एंड एनवायरनमेंट. यहाँ पे है जहाँ पे डिजीज़ होता है. ये जब ये तीनों इंटरेक्ट करते हैं एक दूसरे से. So the causation, the causative factor of disease may be classified as agent, host, and environment. These three factors are received as epidemiological triad. So the mere presence of agent, host, and favorable environment factor in the pre-pathogenesis period is not sufficient to start the disease in man. What is required is an interaction of these three factors to initiate the disease process in man. The agent, host, and environment operating in combination determines not only the onset of the disease, which may range from single case to epidemic, but also the distribution of the disease in the country. Then we have pathogenesis phase. ओके, ख़त्म हो जाएगा. एक डेढ़ दो से 2 घंटे में ख़त्म हो जाएगा. I find this very, lengthy chapter. I don't know why. It's just 60 pages and still not even 60 pages. How much was it? Did I start from page 1? No, man. I started from 13th page. Oh my god. This was not even 60 pages. This was just 48 pages. And I have read only 30 pages. Not even 30. सो पैथोजेनेसिस फेज में आ जाते हैं. So the pathogenesis phase begins with the entry of the disease agent in susceptible human host. The further event in pathogenesis phase are clear cut in infectious disease. Now the disease agent multiplies and introduces into tissue and physiological causes physiological changes. ठीक है. So the disease progresses through a period of incubation and later through early and late pathogenesis. So the final outcome of the disease may be recovery, disability, or death. Pathogenesis may be modified into interventions measures such as immunization, chemotherapy. It is useful to remember that this stage that the host's reaction to infection with a disease agent is not predictable. That is, the infection may be clinical या फिर subclinical, typical or atypical, or the host may become a carrier with or without having developed clinical disease, as in the case of diphtheria and hepatitis B. डिप्थीरिया और हेपेटाइटिस बी में ना कैरियर बन जाता है होस्ट, और वो बाकी के लोगों को फैलाते रहता है. So in chronic diseases जैसे कि coronary heart disease, hypertension, cancer, the early pathogenesis phase is less dramatic. This phase is in chronic disease is referred to as pre-symptomatic phase. During this pre-symptomatic stage, there is no manifestation of the disease. The pathological changes are essentially below the level of the clinical horizons, and the clinical stage begins when recognizable signs and symptoms appears. By the time signs and symptoms appear, the disease phase is already well advanced into the late pathogenesis phase. In many chronic diseases, the agent host environment interaction are not yet well understood. So, agent factor. So, the first link in the chain of disease transmission is a disease agent. The disease agent is defined as the substance, living or non living, or a force, tangible or intangible, the excessive presence or relative lack of which may initiate the perpetuate of a disease process. A disease may have a single agent, a number of independent alternative agent, or a complex of two or more factors whose combined presence is essential for the development of the disease. The disease agent may be classified broadly into the following groups: biological agent, nutrient agent, physical agent, chemical agent, mechanical agent, absence or insufficiency or excess of a factor necessary to health, एंड सोशल एजेंट. सात क्या एजेंट फैक्टर्स है, तो बायोलॉजिकल एजेंट देख लेते हैं. दीज आर लिविंग एजेंट्स ऑफ डिजीज, वेयर वायरस, रिकेट्सिया, फंगाई, बैक्टीरिया, प्रोटोजोआ, मेटाजोआ. These agents exhibit certain host related biological properties such as infectivity. This is the ability of an infectious agent to invade and multiply, produce infection in the host. Pathogenicity. This is the ability to induce clinically apparent illness. And virulence क्या होता है? This is defined as the proportion of clinical cases resulting in severe clinical manifestation including sequelae, and case fatality is one way of measuring virulence. So nutrient agent, these are proteins, fats, carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals and water. Any excess or deficiency of the intake of nutrient element may result in nutrient disorder. Protein energy malnourishment, anemia, goiter, obesity, vitamin deficiency are some of the current nutritional problem in many countries. Now, physical agent. Exposure to excessive heat, cold, humidity, pressure, radiation, electricity, sound may result in illness. केमिकल एजेंट, सो एंडोजीनियस एक्सोजीनियस दो केमिकल एजेंट होता है. सम ऑफ द केमिकल्स मे बी प्रोड्यूस्ड इन द बॉडी एज अ रिजल्ट ऑफ डीरेंजमेंट ऑफ द फंक्शन, जैसे यूरिया, सीरम बिलीरुबिन, कीटोन, यूरिक एसिड, कैल्शियम कार्बोनेट. एक्सोजीनियस क्या होता है? एजेंट्स अराइजिंग आउटसाइड द ह्यूमन होस्ट, जैसे कि एलर्जेंस, मेटल फ्यूम्स, डस्ट गैसेस, इंसेक्टिसाइड्स एक्सेट्रा. These may be acquired by inhalation, ingestion या फिर inoculation. Now mechanical agents. Sorry. मैकेनिकल एजेंट में क्या है, एक्सपोजर टू क्रॉनिक फ्रिक्शन या फिर अदर मैकेनिकल फोर्सेस में रिजल्ट इन क्रशिंग, टियरिंग, स्प्रेन, dislocation and even death. So, so absence or insufficiency or excess of a factor necessary to health, इसमें क्या आएगा, दिस मे बी केमिकल फैक्टर्स जैसे कि हार्मोन, इंसुलिन, एस्ट्रोजन, एंजाइम्स, न्यूट्रिएंट फैक्टर जैसे गिवन अंडर नंबर टू above, lack of structure जैसे thymus, lack of part of structure, cardiac defect है, chromosomal factors जैसे कि मंगोलिज्म, टर्नर सिंड्रोम, इम्यूनोलॉजिकल फैक्टर्स जैसे कि ए गामा ग्लोबिनेमिया. अब सोशल एजेंट्स देख लेते हैं. इट इज़ ऑल्सो नेसेसरी टू कंसिडर सोशल एजेंट्स ऑफ डिजीज़. These are poverty, smoking, abuse of drugs and alcohol, unhealthy lifestyle, social isolation, maternal deprivation, etc. ये सब social agents हैं. Thus, the modern concept of disease agent is a very broad one. It includes both living and non-living agents. So, host factor देख लेते हैं. Intrinsic factor क्या है? In epidemiological terminology, the human host is referred to as soil, and the disease agent as seed. हम लोग सॉइल है और जो डिजीज़ है वो सीड है. इन सम सिचुएशन होस्ट फैक्टर प्लेज अ मेजर रोल इन डिटरमाइनिंग द आउटकम ऑफ द इंडिविजुअल्स एक्सपोजर टू इन्फेक्शन जैसे टीबी वीबी में. द होस्ट फैक्टर मे बी क्लासिफाइड एज डेमोग्राफिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स सच एज एज, सेक्स, एथनिसिटी. बायोलॉजिकल कैरेक्टरिस्टिक जैसे कि जेनेटिक फैक्टर, बायोकेमिकल लेवल ऑफ द ब्लड कोलेस्ट्रॉल, blood group enzymes, cellular constituent of the blood, immunological factors, physiological function of different organ system of the body जैसे कि ब्लड प्रेशर, फोर्स एक्सपीरेटरी वेंटिलेशन एक्सेट्रा. सोशल एंड इकोनॉमिक कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स सच एज सोशो इकोनॉमिक स्टेटस, एजुकेशनल, ऑक्यूपेशनल स्ट्रेस, marital status, housing, etc. Lifestyle factors such as personal trait, living habits, nutritional, physical exercise, use of alcohol, drug, and smoking, behavioral pattern, etc. ये सब association of a particular disease with specific set of host factors frequently provide the insight to the cause of the disease. So the host factor of importance are further discussed in chapter. सो इन्वामेंटल फैक्टर देख लेते हैं. होस्ट फैक्टर इंट्रेंसिक था, इन्वामेंटल जो है वो उसको एक्सट्रेंसिक बोला जाता है. क्या है इन्वामेंटल फैक्टर? द स्टडी ऑफ डिसीज इज रियली द स्टडी ऑफ मैन एंड हिज इन्वायरमेंट. So hundreds of million of people are affected by preventable disease originating in the environment in which they live. For human beings, the environment is not limited as it normally is for plants and animals to a set of climatic factors. For example, for man, social and economic conditions are more important than the means of annual temperature. Thus, the concept of environment is complex and all embracing. The external or macro environment is defined as all that which is external to the individual human host, living and non living, and with which he is in constant includes all of man's external surroundings such as air, water, food, housing. So, for descriptive purpose, the environment of man has been divided into three components: physical, biological, and psychosocial. It should be emphasized that this separation is artificial, they are closely related to each other and with the host factor. So, physical environment, then we have biological, then social, psychosocial. फिजिकल एनवायरनमेंट देख लेते क्या होता है. सो द टर्म फिजिकल एनवायरनमेंट इज अप्लाइड टू नॉन हाउसिंग नॉन लिविंग थिंग्स एंड फिजिकल फैक्टर्स जैसे एयर वाटर सॉइल हाउसिंग climate geography, heat light noise debris radiation etc. with which man is in constant interaction. Man's victory over his physical environment has been responsible for most of um, the improvement in health during the past century. In most developing countries, defective environment, जैसे कि lack of sanitation, continues to be the main health problem. Man has already practically everything in his physical environment to his advantage. In doing so, he has created for himself a host of new health problems such as air pollution, water pollution, noise pollution, urbanization, radiation hazard, the increasing use of electrical and electronic devices, including the rapid growth of telecommunication system, जैसे कि satellite system, radio broadcasting, television transmission, and radar installation have increased the possibility of human exposure to electromagnetic energy. Man is living today in a highly complicated environment, which is getting more complicated as man is becoming more ingenious in this trend. If these trends continue, it is feared that the very quality of life we cherish may soon be in danger. It will be. बहुत लॉजिकल है क्योंकि ह्यूमन बींग्स आर मिसयूजिंग every form of resource that is available to us. We are human being को क्यों बोलेंगे? Let's just be individualistic. We are abusing all the resources. सो फ्यूचर जनरेशन हमारे बच्चों के लिए कुछ भी नहीं बचेगा. बचेगा जो वही जो हम लोग नहीं यूज़ किए, जो बचा खुचा है वो बचेगा. इट्स लाइक आप एक पार्टी में खुद खाना खा लो और जो खाने में प्लेट बचा है ना वो अपने बच्चे के लिए छोड़ दो कि उससे वो लोग खाएंगे. हम लोग वही कर रहे हैं. चलो बायोलॉजिकल एनवायरनमेंट देख लेते हैं. सो द बायोलॉजिकल एनवायरनमेंट इज़ द यूनिवर्स ऑफ लिविंग थिंग विच सराउंड्स द मैन and it includes man himself. The living things are the virus, other microbial agents, insect, rodent, animals, and plants. These are constantly working for their survival, and in process, some of them act as disease-producing agent, reservoir of infection, intermediate host, and vector of disease between the member of the ecological system, which includes man and there is constant adjustment and readjustment. For the most part, the parties manage to effect a harmonious interrelationship to achieve a state of peaceful coexistence, even though this may not be always enduring. When for any reason this harmonious relationship is disturbed, ill health results. In the area of biological environment, also, preventive medicine has been highly successful in promoting the health of the individual and of the community. Okay, then we have psychosocial environment. Psychosocial environment क्या होता होगा? So it is difficult to define psychosocial environment against the background of the highly varied social, economic, and cultural context of different countries and their social standard and value system. It includes a complex of psychosocial factors, which are defined as those factors affecting personal health, health care, and community well being that stem from the psychosocial makeup of individual and sorry individual and the structure and function of the social group. So they include cultural values, custom, habits, beliefs, attitudes, moral, religion, education, lifestyle, community health, health service, and social and political organization. In addition, to this broad aspect of the psycho-social environment, man is the constant interaction. Man is in constant interaction with that part of the social environment known as people. He is a member of the social group and a member of the family, of a caste, of a community, of a nation. So between the individual and other member of the group, there can be harmony or disharmony, interests and point of view that are shared or that are in conflict. The behavior of one individual can affect others more or less directly. Conflict and tension between the individual and the group as a whole, or between the individual and other member of the group, can yield great distress. The law of land, custom, attitudes, belief, tradition, all regulate the interaction among the group of individuals and families. The impact of social environment has both positive and negative aspect on the health of the individual and community. A favorable social environment can improve the health, provide opportunity for man to achieve a sense of fulfillment and add to the quality of life. Therefore, customs and tradition favoring health must be preserved. Beneficial social behavior, community participation should be restored where it has disappeared due to social changes. Now, psychosocial factors can also affect negatively man's health and well being. For example, जैसे कि poverty, urbanization, migration, exposure to stressful situation such as bereavement, desertion, loss of employment, birth of a handicapped child, ये सब बहुत stressful होता है, may produce feelings of anxiety, depression, anger, frustration and so forth. And these feelings may be accompanied by physical symptoms such as headache, palpitation, sweating. But these emotional states are also produces changes in the endocrine, autonomic, and motor system, which, if prolonged in interaction with genetic and personality factors, may lead to structural change in various bodily organs. The resulting psychosomatic disorders include conditions such as duodenal ulcer, bronchial asthma, hypertension, coronary heart disease, mental disorders, and social deviant behaviors. So, suicide, crime, violence, drug abuse. Of primary concern is coronary heart disease, which may be related to lifestyle and psychosocial stress. In many countries, road accidents are now the principal cause of death in young people. RTA जो होता है, now it is related to psychosocial states such as boredom, anxiety, frustration, and other preoccupation that can impair attention. Man today is viewed as an agent of his own disease. His state of health is determined more by what he does to himself than what some outside germ या फिर infectious agent does to him. For example, the medical cause of lung cancer may be chemical substance in cigarette, but the psychosocial cause is behavior, smoking. From a psychosocial point of view, disease may be viewed as a maladjustment to human organism and to his psychosocial environment, resulting from misinterpretation, misperception, and misbehavior. Epidemiologists today are as much concerned with psychosocial environment as with physical and biological environment in search of etiological causes of disease. Because of the fact that man exists concurrently in so many environmental contexts, it has become customary to seek the man in his total environment. The social environment is so inextricably linked with the physical and biological environment that it is realistic and necessary to view the human environment in toto to produce health. A stable and harmonious equilibrium between man and his environment is needed to reduce man's vulnerability to disease and to permit him to lead a more productive and satisfying life. ठीक है. सो रिस्क फैक्टर हम लोग देख लेते हैं. रिस्क फैक्टर्स क्या होता है. सो फॉर मेनी डिजीजेस द डिजीज एजेंट इज स्टिल अनआइडेंटिफाइड. जैसे कि कोरोनरी हार्ट डिजीज, इसके लिए कोई एजेंट तो नहीं बता सकते. कैंसर, पेप्टिक अल्सर, मेंटल इलनेस, where the disease agent is not firmly established, the etiology is generally discussed in the terms of risk factors. जहाँ पे बेसिकली कोई एजेंट बता नहीं सकते कि किसकी वजह से हो रहा है, तब हम लोग रिस्क फैक्टर्स यूज़ करते हैं. द टर्म रिस्क फैक्टर इज यूज बाय डिफरेंट ऑथर्स विथ एट लीस्ट टू मीनिंग्स. रिस्क फैक्टर का दो मीनिंग होता है क्या. An attribute or exposure that significantly associated with the development of disease, a determinant that can be modified by intervention, thereby reducing the possibility of occurrence of disease and other specified outcomes. Specific outcomes. So, risk factors are often suggestive, but absolute proof of cause and effect between the risk factor and disease is usually lacking. That is, the presence of risk factor does not imply that the disease will occur, and in its absence, the disease will not occur. The important thing about risk factor is that they are observable or identifiable prior to the event they predict. रिस्क फैक्टर्स वो डिजीज़ करने से पहले ही हम लोग प्रेडिक्ट कर सकते हैं क्या रिस्क फैक्टर्स है. इट इज़ ऑल्सो रिकोगनाइज दैट द कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ रिस्क फैक्टर इन द सेम इंडिविजुअल मे इवन बी प्योरली एडिटिव एंड सिनर्जिस्टिक या फिर मल्टीप्लिकेटिव. फॉर एग्जाम्पल स्मोकिंग एंड ऑक्यूपेशनल एक्सपोजर जैसे शू, लेदर, rubber dye, chemical industries were found to have an additive effect at the risk of bladder का cancer. On the other hand, smoking was found to be synergistic with other risk factors such as hypertension, high blood cholesterol. That is, the effect are more than additive. रिस्क फैक्टर्स में भी ट्रूली पॉजिटिव जैसे कि स्मोकिंग फॉर लंग कैंसर, दे मे बी मेयरली कॉन्ट्रीब्यूटरी टू द अनडिजायर्ड आउटकम. जैसे लैक ऑफ फिजिकल एक्सरसाइज अ रिस्क फैक्टर फॉर कोरोनरी हार्ट डिजीज, और दे मे बी प्रिडिक्टिव ओनली इन अ स्टैटिस्टिकल सेंस जैसे इलिटरेसी और पेरीनेटल मोर्टालिटी. So some risk factors can be modified, other cannot be modified. The modifiable factors include smoking, hypertension, elevated serum cholesterol, physical activities, obesity. They are amenable to interventions and are useful in the care of individual. The unmodifiable or immutable risk factors such as age, sex, race, family history, and genetic factors are not subject to change. They act more as signal in altering health professionals and other personnel to the possible outcome. Now, risk factor may be characterized in individual, the family, the group, the community, or the environment. For example, some of the individual risk factors include age, sex, smoking, hypertension, but there are also collective community risks. For example, the presence of malaria from air pollution and from some standard housing or poor water supply, poor health care services. The degree of risk in these cases is indirectly an expression to the need. Therefore, it is stated that the risk factor is a proxy for need, indicating the need for promotive and preventive health services. Right? Then epidemiological methods देख लेते, case control and cohort study. So are needed to identify risk factors and estimate the degree of risk. These studies are carried out in a population group among whom certain diseases occur much more frequently than the other group. By such comparative studies, epidemiologists have been able to identify smoking as a risk factor for lung cancer, high serum cholesterol, high blood pressure as the risk factor for coronary heart disease. So the contribution to epidemiology in the identification of risk factor have been highly significant. Risk factor associated with some of the major disease group are shown in table 8. क्या क्या है? हार्ट डिजीज़ के लिए क्या है? स्मोकिंग, हाई ब्लड प्रेशर, एलिवेटेड सीरम कोलेस्ट्रॉल, डायबिटीज़, ओबेसिटी, लैक ऑफ एक्सरसाइज, टाइप है पर्सनालिटी. तो कैंसर के लिए क्या है? स्मोकिंग, अल्कोहल, सोलर रेडिएशन, आयनाइजिंग रेडिएशन, वर्क साइट हजार्ड, एनवायरमेंटल पोल्यूशन, मेडिकेशन, इन्फेक्शियस एजेंट, डेयरी फैक्टर्स. ना स्ट्रोक के लिए क्या है रिस्क फैक्टर्स? तो हाई ब्लड प्रेशर, एलिवेटेड कोलेस्ट्रॉल एंड स्मोकिंग. मोटर व्हीकल एक्सीडेंट के लिए क्या है? अल्कोहल, नॉन यूज़ ऑफ सीट बेल्ट, यानी आरटीए के लिए बोल रहे हैं, स्पीड, ऑटोमोबाइल डिज़ाइन, रोडवे डिज़ाइन. डायबिटीज़ के लिए क्या है? ओबेसिटी एंड डाइट. सिरोसिस ऑफ लिवर के लिए अल्कोहल है. So the detection of risk factors should be considered a prelude, prelude to prevention of or intervention. For each risk factor ascertained, the question has been asked whether it can be reduced in a cost-effective way or whether its reduction will prevent or delay unwanted outcomes. Since the detection procedure usually involves the whole population, bears some similarity to pre-symptomatic screening disease. गाइस इसके बाद ना थोड़ी देर बाद हम लोग फिर से स्टार्ट करते हैं. थैंक यू.